Hey everyone, Jamie here from Scareticulous. So, I'm gonna review and give my thoughts on the latest Looney Tunes cartoon, Daffy Duck and Porky Pig in The Day the Earth Blew Up. So, right off the bat, there has not been a lot of marketing or promotion for this film, so probably a lot of you haven't even heard of it, but it actually got a wide theater release, and it's in theaters just like any other movie. It was distributed by Ketchup Films or Ketchup Entertainment, whatever it's called, and they actually made a full Looney Tunes animation just out of nowhere about Porky Pig and Daffy Duck. It's like a buddy comedy, and the concept of the film is basically Porky Pig and Daffy Duck are raised by a farmer called Farmer Jim, and from like when they're babies, like apparently they were going to be out to get eaten by like other animals and stuff, and Farmer Jim saved them, and they've just been making like a mess of everything. Like they're totally accident prone. They get into, especially Daffy Duck. Daffy Duck being not just accident prone, but just going crazy and just doing all kinds of crazy stuff is literally one of the biggest plot points in this movie. And they set that up from the very beginning. And when they finally grow up and Farmer Jim is no more, they have their house that Farmer Jim left to them. They were living on a farm, but I guess they converted it to just a normal house. There's no farmland anymore. And they have to basically survive, but their house is all like dilapidated, and it's like in ruins. It's like the stairs are broken, the roof's broken, all kinds of wreckage. And this I guess this woman who works for like I don't know, house assessments or whatever from in the neighborhood that makes sure that they're up to code or something like that. Like I guess she's part of like the city council or something like that. She comes and inspects the house and see if it's livable, right, or habitable. And she says, that the roof is like caved in, and they missed like this giant hole in the roof. And they basically have like 10 days to fix the roof problem, or else their whole house will be condemned. And so that's basically the plot of the movie, and they have to like get a job basically to make money so they can afford to fix the roof. And that's the plot. So what goes from there is them trying to get all these jobs and getting fired from every single one because they're just incompetent, basically. I mean, it's Porky Pig and Daffy Duck. They can't do anything except make a mess out of everything. Porky Pig, to a lesser extent, he's incompetent, but not as much so as Daffy Duck, because Daffy Duck just messes everything up. It's kind of like, those comedies where you have like, let's say like two brothers, and one of them's like a screw up, right? And they keep screwing up for the other brother, and that's why things never work out in the long run for them. That's basically like the relationship dynamic between Daffy Duck and Porky Pig in this. There's actually emotional arcs in this movie, which is quite surprising. Another thing that was surprising to me is that this movie is basically like a sci-fi action thriller. Obviously it's a comedy, it's a cartoon where Looney Tunes are like cracking jokes and doing physical comedy and pratfalls and stuff all over the place. But the plot hinges upon a lot of science fiction plot details. There's one job they get, and this is central to the plot, is when they meet this girl pig, Petunia, who Porky Pig falls in love with, head over heels. He comes into like one of the restaurants that they're, having milkshakes at or whatever, and he falls in love right out the gate. Well, she gets them a job, and in this bubblegum factory, and we see this set up early on. There's these bubblegum factories that are really huge and popular in town, and she works as like not a taste tester, but like someone who cultivates the tastes for the gum, like the taste scientist. I don't know what to call her, but she's something like that. And she gets them a job there. Basically, Porky Pig presses a button and Daffy Duck, he pulls a crank, and that's basically their job. It's very simple jobs, right? And I guess during their breaks, like after their shift is over, they can do the jobs. That's not the problem. But what happens from there is Daffy Duck uncovers a very weird thing happening at the factory where this, one scientist is putting like this goo that Daffy Duck found traces of on their roof, like the hole in their roof. The goo is on the roof as well, and that same goo the scientist is putting into like one of the gums. And so that gum apparently is going to go out in global circulation, right? And everyone's going to taste it, and it's going to, we don't know what's going to happen, right? Because Daffy Duck is uncovering this whole conspiracy theory. He tells Porky about it. Porky's like, what are you going to do? We're going to lose our jobs, if you're going to keep cracking these conspiracy theories, So it's actually kind of interesting with a sci-fi plot like this. They actually do talk about, like the element of conspiracy theories and how, someone can seem crazy talking about a certain subject thing, saying, this is happening, that's happening, and we look at them like they're nuts, right? That same element plays out in this movie, surprisingly. It's interesting for a Looney Tunes cartoon movie. There's a lot of like mature themes in this. There's the dynamic between two brothers. There's conspiracy theorists. There's all kinds of stuff. So it's very interesting while they're kind of veering back and forth between like the silly slapstick comedy stuff to like the kind of serious dynamics of like the implications of the people turning into pod people because of the bubble gum, and then the aliens are coming up from outer space trying to take over the world, and there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. I would say that for me, as far as the comedy goes, actually I think it works better as more of just like an action sci-fi thriller than a comedy. As a comedy, I liked it, but it's not. You're not going to be laughing like a mile a minute. Like that's not how this movie is going to go. There are, plenty of jokes in it. There's plenty of like silly stuff happening, but for the most part, it kind of deals with the characters of Daffy Duck and Porky Pig on kind of a serious level. They're not just treated as like jokes. They actually give them character arcs where they reach a conclusion by the end. They actually learn things and develop the relationship better, and form better bonds with each other. It's kind of cute. It's kind of cute and well fleshed out emotionally. There's a lot of emotional beats that they do hit in this. As silly as it may seem at at certain times, because it's Looney Tunes, and the animation is so well done. I haven't even gotten to that part yet about the animation in this movie. It's very well done. I will say it's very modern. Although it's still also harkening back to like the classic designs of Porky and Daffy Duck, but still with like there's some modern twists here and there to like their animations, or like certain poses they'll make, or certain stylistic choices. So it's a little bit modernized for modern times, but it's still reminiscent of those old designs. So it's kind of a mix of old and new. One thing that I found to be kind of depressing is that this film didn't get any marketing, and so there was basically no one in the theater with me. I think there was one person in there, and that was it. One person was in the theater with me, and they were like 2 levels up or whatever. I could hear them, and that was it. So I mean, if you guys really want to support 2D animation, which I love 2D animation. I love 2D animated films, especially ones that are like, especially like the Disney ones. Disney 2D animated films are some of my favorites, like Aladdin. Aladdin's my favorite 2D animated film, and I've just always loved those since I was a kid. And it's just a shame we don't get more of those. And anytime like you see like Looney Tunes nowadays, it's like it has to be accompanied by some real life stuff. You know what I mean? Like some real world. Like it's got to be, LeBron James has to come into the the mix or something. It's because it's everything that happened from the '90s, where everything was super commercialized with Warner Brothers and Looney Tunes, where they were on like these like I don't know ghetto T-shirts and stuff like that in the '90s. I don't know if any of y'all remember that, but I had one of those shirts. I had like a Tasmanian devil with like you had like a chain on and like a baggy shirt and baggy jeans and stuff. The Looney Tunes in the '90s was something else. So I feel like our culture's concept of Looney Tunes has kind of been muddled a fair bit since the old days of traditional animation. And this is like the first 2D animated Looney Tunes full featured film to be in theaters probably in like I don't know 50 60 years or something. It's been a long time. I mean, even the Space Jams are not completely animated, you have the live action part of that. That kind of it changes things. It recontextualizes everything, and everything has to like go back to that real life kind of aesthetic, whereas this it's like the cartoon can be fully what it is. It can ham it up as much as they want. They can be all over the place. You don't got to think about compositing the real person into the scene or anything like that. It's just full-on 2D animated glory, and there's lots of stuff that does stay true and harken back to the old days. Like Daffy Duck loves his mallet. That's like central to his characters. He loves to just smash things. That's his thing. I will say his character reminds me a little bit more of like a Roger Rabbit type. Whereas I feel like certain incarnations of Daffy Duck weren't always so like wild and all over the place. Like I remember Daffy Duck when he was just more like grumpy, and he was just like really angry all the time, and he always wanted to get his way, and he was super egotistical. In this movie, that's dialed down like a fair bit. I feel like they've evolved Daffy's character to be more like crazy and all over the place rather than like an egotistical jerk. Although I kind of like the egotistical jerk. I thought him as like a grumpy like guy that's he's like, for example, him paired up with Bugs Bunny is always hilarious. And I would love if like a sequel to this came out and they had Bugs Bunny into the mix. I think that would be a really interesting pairing, because the thing about like Looney Tunes and a lot of cartoons like this in general is they're funny because of not just because of like the pratfalls and the slapstick humor, but because of the character interactions, right? We see that interaction between like Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny in like that famous duck season, wabbit season bit, and it's hilarious, right? Because they have such like opposite personalities, where Bugs Bunny's really cool and calm and clearly, very clever, right? And Daffy Duck is just getting angry with everything that he does, and it's just hilarious, right? We don't really get that same kind of interaction in this movie, because instead what replaces it is the interaction between Porky Pig and Daffy Duck, which is decidedly more emotional, because they're essentially brothers in this, which is interesting because there's always been like a Daffy Duck Porky Pig pairing in the old cartoons. Like in the old days, they classically had a friendly kind of relationship, but they were very opposite, right? But in this movie, it's kind of established they're basically brothers. So their dynamic is more like one of love, but also one of friction, where it's like they love each other, they care about each other, but they're so different. And Porky Pig is clearly, always worried about his brother messing everything up and, not doing things the right way. And then they're going to basically wind up broken without a house and, stuff like that. So what I'll say is I enjoyed the film. I think the story was well made. I think they had very good character arcs. It was good. I don't really have many criticisms. Again, just some picky stuff like about Daffy Duck's personality, where he's a little different now. Besides that, it was well done. It's a shame that this movie will probably bomb in theaters and not a lot of people are going to see it, because it just wasn't marketed very well. Nobody's really push this. Warner Brothers doesn't really care to push it. And I don't know if Ketchup Entertainment or whatever that company is even has the budget to really, market the hell out of this movie. I mean, they distributed it into theaters, so I don't know. It's just a shame though, like that this whole movie, this 2D animation, was made, and yet nobody really seems to care about it. It's a shame, And I just wish that there were more movies coming out like this every year instead of like the same 3D animated films. I mean, listen, I like 3D animated films. Don't get me wrong. There's some really good ones. Toy Story is really good. Shrek, a lot of great 3D animated films. But I've always just had a soft spot for 2D animation since I was, little. Like since I was a kid, I've always loved it, and it just has some certain charm to it that you can't really match with 3D animation. They can try, but it's so smooth and perfect, and I don't know. I feel like there's like it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't have to reach that level of perfection to be pretty or beautiful to look at. And this movie is, very well animated, and I feel like they can achieve the same look. I just think that 2D animation is way more expensive to produce, and that's why it's kind of gone out of favor, at least for studios. And 3D animation is way cheaper to make against 2D animated stuff, because 2D animation requires like a physical kind of media. Like you need to sit there and draw like on animation cells and stuff like that. And it's such a long process to make that. Clearly this was a passion project, and it was very well done. I just want, while I like this and I think it was good, I don't think it was like amazing. Just as like a movie, and also if you're thinking of bringing like your kids to this, again, it is a little bit more mature. I would say if your kid is like at least 10 or 11, they could see this no problem, but younger kids would probably get scared by some parts of this movie. There's actually some scary parts to it. Like, there's a part that kind of reminds me of like The Thing. Remember that movie, The Thing, in the 80s? Where it's just kind of like a scary like monster like chasing them around and stuff. It's actually kind of creepy. Like they actually achieved that in this 2D animation. So, this it goes a little bit darker than I would say some other animated films will go, which I like. I like that. I just, and the movie itself is good. I would give it, if I had to rate it, I would give it like an 8 out of 10 for great to very good to great. But I think for a sequel, I would like something different. Something, this was, don't get me wrong, this was different. This is a different kind of story, but I want a story that's more all-encompassing of like the Looney Tunes, I want to see Coyote versus Acme, which apparently Warner Brothers has shelved and they're never going to release because they wanted a tax return instead. Apparently it's cheaper for them to just shelve that and get a tax return instead of just putting that out. But again, that's more of a live-action animated kind of thing as well. It's kind of like the Space Jam movies, or Looney Tunes Back in Action or whatever. It's kind of like that whole deal. So I don't know why they would go through the trouble of making that and then just not put it out. It's really weird to me. It's just dumb. They literally are not putting out the movie. They have it, they just won't put it out. So people are like protesting. I saw this video of Wile E. Coyote protesting outside the studio, which was funny. So yeah, I just want something, I don't know, a little more of an interesting plot and story next time with the other Looney Tunes characters involved as well. I like the dynamic between Daffy Duck and Porky, but I feel like I want more of the characters in a movie like that's like this. I want them inside the movie. So yeah, that's my wish for another film. If they're gonna continue putting out movies like this, I would like them to include more characters, and I don't know, maybe make it a different kind of story, not sci-fi next time. Make it like a different genre. I don't know. I would love to see them try just straight up horror, That would be interesting. Maybe like they're all in a spooky house, or maybe some kind of adventure where they're trying to get the MacGuffin or the gold or whatever. I don't know. Do something Looney. Something that'll wow me. So, anyway, those are my thoughts on the day the Earth blew up, a Looney Tunes movie. Hope you guys go out and see it. Go support your go support your 2D animations. Go support like all the artists that worked very hard on this stuff. And yeah, I recommend it. Go watch it. I also want to see Novocaine, but I decided to see this to support animation. So, all right, later, y'all.